The world is still, the air crisp, and the lake's surface mirrors the golden morning sky. But something mysterious lingers above the water, an enchanting mist floating gently. This mist isn't smoke or a trick of the light. It hovers, moves, and sways like a silent ghost. But what is it? And why does it only appear at certain times? Look closer. This mist is made of countless tiny water droplets floating just above the surface. It forms a delicate veil, almost as if nature itself is whispering a secret. During the day, the lake looks clear and peaceful. But in the early morning, before the sun rises high, fog blankets the surface. Why does it appear at dawn? As the sun rises, something magical happens. The mist starts to disappear. The warmth of the new day gently lifts it away, leaving behind only the shimmering water. But what makes fog form in the first place? Why does it only appear when the air is cool? Let's dive into the science behind this breathtaking phenomenon. Fog may look like smoke, but it's not. If we look closely, we can see it's made of tiny water droplets floating in the air, just like an invisible mist. Unlike clouds that float high in the sky, fog stays close to the ground. It rolls in like a silent wave, covering everything in a soft, misty blanket. So where does fog come from? It all starts with water in the air, water we can't even see. But when the air cools down, something special happens. When warm air from the lake rises and meets cooler air above, the moisture in the air starts to turn into tiny droplets, just like when you see your breath on a cold day. Fog and clouds are actually very similar. Both are made of tiny water droplets. The only difference? Clouds form high in the sky, while fog forms near the ground. But what causes fog to appear only at certain times? And why does it disappear when the sun rises? Let's find out in the next scene. During the day, the sun shines on the lake, warming the water. The heat slowly rises into the air, filling it with invisible moisture. As the water warms up, some of it turns into water vapor, tiny invisible droplets that float into the air. But as the sun sets, everything begins to cool down. The air above the lake gets colder, and something fascinating happens. When the warm, moist air meets the cold air above, the moisture in the air begins to change. But into what? The moisture in the air turns into tiny water droplets, just like when you see your breath on a cold morning. These tiny droplets stay in the air, forming a soft mist above the lake. This is how fog is created. This is the same thing that happens when you breathe out on a cold day. Your warm breath meets the cold air, and a little fog appears. At night, everything cools down. But by morning, when the air is just the right temperature, the lake is covered in fog. Scientists call this the dew point, the exact temperature when water vapor turns into tiny liquid droplets, creating fog. Once fog begins to form, it spreads across the lake like a quiet, drifting blanket, making everything look magical. But as the sun rises higher in the sky, its warmth causes the fog to disappear. The tiny water droplets evaporate back into the air. Now we know how fog forms. But how is fog different from frost? Let's explore this in the next scene. Fog is a soft mist that floats in the air, making everything look dreamy and mysterious. But did you know there's something similar but very different? Instead of floating in the air, frost forms on the ground, covering everything with tiny ice crystals. But why does this happen? Both fog and frost come from moisture in the air, but the difference is temperature. Let's take a closer look. If the air stays above freezing, water droplets remain liquid and float, creating fog. But if the temperature drops below freezing, those tiny droplets freeze into ice, forming frost. Fog is made of tiny water droplets that are too light to fall, so they float just above the ground. Frost forms when water vapor in the air freezes directly onto surfaces, like leaves and grass. You can see fog like mist when you breathe out on a cold day. That's warm moisture from your breath turning into tiny droplets. But if the air is freezing, instead of mist, you might see frost forming on windows and surfaces. As the sun warms the air, frost melts away, just like fog disappears when the morning warms up. Fog and frost may look different, but they both show us how water and air react to temperature changes. Now that we know the difference between fog and frost, why does fog only appear in certain places? Let's find out in the next scene. Fog doesn't appear everywhere. Some mornings are clear, while others are covered in mist. Why is that? Lakes are perfect places for fog because they release moisture into the air, and the cool night air helps it condense. Valleys are also fog hotspots. Cold air gets trapped between hills, creating the perfect conditions for fog to form. Near the ocean, fog forms when warm sea air meets cool land air, creating a thick, rolling mist. But in dry places like deserts, there isn't enough moisture in the air, so fog rarely forms. So fog needs just the right mix of moisture and temperature and still air to appear. That's why some places see it often, while others never do. Fog is more than just mist. It's nature's way of showing us the balance of air, water, and temperature. As the sun rises, the air warms up and the fog fades away, revealing the world underneath. Fog reminds us that nature is always changing, even in the quietest moments. This silent poetry of nature happens every day in different places all over the world. So next time you see fog floating over a lake, take a deep breath and enjoy the mystery and beauty of it all. And that's the magic behind fog. Thanks for watching and stay curious.